My brother died protecting his girlfriend, but right after his death, that woman jumped into the arms of the person responsible for it. 5 years later, I heard she's now rich and in power, and her favorite pastime is young men. Well, I happen to be young and handsome. Dear ex-sister-in-law, do you like me? A studio opened solely for Christina was recruiting an assistant. It was pretty clear to anyone what the real hiring process was about. 3 rounds of interviews, with the final one being conducted by Christina herself. When she saw me, she seemed a bit stunned. Her usually impeccable face showed a rare sign of surprise. What's your name? Eric. Christina nodded. She seemed relieved, probably because the name Eric didn't have much to do with her late boyfriend, John, even though I bore some resemblance to him. Maybe it was just a coincidence. Christina waved her hand, and I obediently exited the room. Soon, her secretary came out and handed me an envelope. Inside was a room key. The secretary's expression was quite intriguing. Young man, make sure you impress her. I didn't say anything in response, figuring it meant I passed the interview. At 8 p.m., I arrived at the hotel room as instructed, only to find it empty. However, I keenly noted a hidden pinhole camera directed right at the bed. I pretended not to notice. As expected, there was likely more than one camera in the room. The dim lighting added a suggestive air, with rose petals scattered on a pristine bed, and a conspicuously placed box of safety peaches, a euphemism used for condoms. Regular hotel arrangements wouldn't include such touches unless someone specifically requested it. But Christina never showed up, even by midnight. I knew she wasn't coming. I wasn't sure where I slipped up or if she had chosen someone else instead. Still, I doubted anyone could interest her more than I could, considering how much I resembled John, the man who gave his life for her. He was someone she loved in her youth but lost due to her own selfishness. She couldn't make amends for it for the rest of her life. This was her perpetual regret. Her previous assistants all bore a slight resemblance to John. That's why I confidently presented myself. I took a gamble that nobody would look more like John than I did, not just in the face but in every way. I even knew about their past. Even though Christina didn't appear that night, and I was curious, I didn't show it. Once I saw she truly wasn't coming, I undressed and got into bed, displaying my abs and shoulder muscles perfectly for the camera. It was an unintentional move, yet enough to grab Christina's attention. It seemed like I wasn't expecting anything that night. I was simply sleeping in a hotel. The next morning, I got a call. It was the secretary who previously told me to make a good impression. She cheerfully informed me that I had passed Christina's company interview and could start work the next day. I suddenly understood. Christina never intended to come that night. It was a test. After all, reaching her level of wealth and power wasn't easy. It's wise to be cautious of those with ill intent. When I saw Christina again, her attitude improved. At least she didn't ignore me completely. But she frowned upon my attire, and with a wave, she sent me with her secretary. I went through a complete makeover. My previous style was ordinary, like a new college grad trying hard to appear mature. The cheap, ill-fitting suit didn't match my vibe. That look was obviously unappealing, but made me seem more genuine. The last time I saw my brother 5 years ago, he dressed like that. He had just graduated and was job hunting, wearing a poorly fitting suit, constantly nodding and bowing. He thought he'd soon find a decent job and lead a comfortable life. Not rich, just peaceful, providing a stable life for himself and his family. Who knew he'd die tragically 3 months post-graduation? Most new college graduates from ordinary families dress like I do now. It's nothing unusual. But I suppose for Christina, this look might sting, or maybe she just wants to style me how she prefers. I looked significantly younger after the makeover, not like a 23-year-old, more like a teenager. In the mirror, I saw a young face wearing a simple yet elegant white shirt, and I kind of saw someone else, the brother who just entered college, confident about life, always smiling, who liked helping with my homework and playing games with me. Whatever we did, as long as he was there, it was enough. I gave a slight smile at the mirror, like meeting an old friend after a long time. Christina seemed pleased with the transformation. The manager assisting me grinned widely, implying that Christina rewarded generously. Christina took me to her home, a lavish yet empty place that didn't seem lived in. Christina smiled and said, "You'll live here from now on." With that, she turned and left without hesitation. I frowned and instinctively took a step forward. Christina paused and turned to look at me. "Is there a problem?" I shook my head and asked, "What are my job responsibilities?" Christina replied, "Your job is to wait for me to return here." She quickly left, unwilling to take another look at me. I sat dumbfounded on the couch. If I wasn't mistaken, there were 5 cameras in different angles in the living room. What about other rooms? Were there cameras there too? How many? Was this another test from Christina? What would an average person, someone without any hidden motive, do? No, nobody ever does anything without a purpose. I'm here for work. I'm here to make money. My goal is all about the money, so I just need to follow orders. Since the boss said my only job is to wait for her to come back, that's exactly what I'm doing. I turned on my computer, downloaded a couple of movies, and started killing time without much aim. When the movies got boring, I played some games. When the games got dull, I started reading novels, and I even called up a friend to tell him I landed a great job. My only task was to play as I wished. My friend thought I was joking, saying there's no such good job. But I told him I got lucky and even suggested he give it a try. Days went by so freely for a week that I felt just like a carefree college student. John was actually like this too. He was always a good student, the kid other parents talked about. Neighbors would ask their kids to learn from him. But only I knew he wasn't that into studying. I remember clearly that after college entrance exams, he spent 2 months at home playing games. He said he was catching up on all the fun he'd missed. And Christina probably knew what he was like in private too. Christina didn't restrict my freedom, but I was too lazy to go out. Every meal was delivered. I could choose between fresh ingredients or ready-made dishes. Life was just too easy, but I knew exactly why I was here. On the 10th day after I moved in, Christina showed up. She still had that very calm vibe, but something felt different about her today. Maybe it was because she had stopped testing me. Christina looked at me seriously and asked, "Eric, do you know what your job is?" I replied, "To listen to you. Whatever you ask me to do." I chuckled. I behaved, didn't I, these past 10 days? Christina didn't speak. She just looked at me quietly. I have to admit, she's beautiful. Otherwise, she wouldn't have driven someone to such extremes to get her. She stared at me, and I felt a bit shy, lowering my head, not daring to look at her. Then Christina smiled, "Go take a shower." This sounded like a hidden suggestion, and my face instantly turned red. Christina raised an eyebrow, looking kind of surprised. "Why so shy?" "I'm not shy," I said, trying to seem tough, as I awkwardly walked toward the bathroom. I vaguely heard Christina chuckle behind me. How long do normal people take to shower? Surely not more than an hour, but I dragged it out much longer. I was betting on Christina losing patience. Sure enough, she soon pushed open the bathroom door. I seemed startled and quickly covered up. I glanced around nervously but couldn't look at Christina. She sighed and said, "Come out." I didn't dare delay any longer. When I walked out, I saw her sitting by the bed. She wore a white dress today, looking pure and beautiful. Step by step, I approached her under her eyes. I had seen this dress before in a photo from 5 years ago. John was holding her and Christina looked shy. They had just graduated, fresh from the ceremony. Christina didn't know John had sent me that photo, nor did she know I went with him to pick out that dress. He spent all his scholarship money on it as a graduation gift for her. Years later, I didn't expect her to still have it. I wondered if she wore it every time she shared a night with an assistant. After all, even until John died, he never had the chance to touch her. Earlier, I was slow in the shower to completely remove her doubts about me. If I were up to something, I'd have rushed to see her instead. I was supposed to play the part of someone naive who thought Christina really hired an assistant, realized the truth but decided to accept it for the perks and her beauty, a useless guy who was only good at eating, drinking, and playing games. I sat beside Christina like a quail, not daring to touch her. She sneered. "Never had a girlfriend before?" "No," I murmured, looking down, my face red as if on fire, my ears burning. Christina reached out, touching my ear, curious. "Why do you blush so easily?" "It's just how I am," I said, wondering if she recalled another guy, someone genuinely shy. John's face would turn red for real. He was really shy. But not me, I was faking it. "You remind me of someone," Christina said as she reached to hug me, leaving me stiff as a board. This stiffness was partly due to my role as a clueless newbie, but also because of disgust. Thinking of John dying for such a woman made me angry. I wanted to dig up John's ashes and ask what was going through his mind. What was so special about her to sacrifice himself? 5 years ago, I was in my senior year of high school when I suddenly learned John was dead. I thought it was a cruel joke. Seeing his body made it all too real. But no one told me why he died. They just said he was gone. From that moment, I set out on a path for revenge. Over these 5 years, I endured countless hardships and finally unearthed the whole truth. I then confronted Christina. Turns out, my brother and Christina were in love for 4 years. They planned to marry after graduating college. But after Christina started working, a big shot noticed her. That guy forcefully pursued her, even raped her. My brother witnessed everything, and it shattered him. He wanted to protect Christina but was brutally beaten to death by that guy's thugs. After witnessing my brother's death, Christina stopped resisting and decided to stay with that big shot. In the version I heard later, Christina was willing to be with him all along. And easily one love isn't cherished, so she pretended to refuse him a few times. Some even said my brother's death was Christina's doing. It was his death that let her become the longest-standing woman by that big shot's side. Even though the big shot has a new lover now, Christina still holds a significant position. She can freely choose her assistants because, by now, their relationship isn't just about money. They have deeper ties. When I found this out, I wanted to ask Christina, during those late nights, do you ever feel guilt? But she probably doesn't. Maybe she once dreamed of a lifetime with my brother. After all, they truly loved each other in college. But faced with temptation, money, and power unattainable to ordinary folks, Christina chose to give in. That's human nature. But I can't forgive her. The more she cares about something, the more I want to take it from her. The next morning when I woke, Christina was already up. Sitting on the windowsill, she looked so frail as if she could be blown away by the wind. Groggily, I sat up and blushed when I saw Christina like that. Christina chuckled softly and came over, patting my face. "Why do you blush so easily? Shy?" I burrowed into the blankets like a quail. This made Christina smile even brighter. She's 5 years older than me, like my brother, yet time seems to have stopped for her. I dared not look at her, only lowering my head to listen to her bright laughter. Soon, people started bringing in large boxes all Christina's luggage. Christina instructed me to organize them as she intended to stay. Naturally, I agreed happily. To celebrate Christina moving in, I even cooked a few dishes despite my mediocre skills. Just some simple home-cooked meals. The tomatoes and eggs had too much salt, the braised pork was undercooked, and the soup looked more like hot pot water. I felt so guilty wanting to slap myself. Looking at Christina, my face turned crimson. Christina leaned over, curious about what I had cooked. I hurriedly said, "Let's go out to eat." Seeing me flustered made Christina more interested, but soon her smile froze. The reason was simple. The dishes I made, Christina had seen 5 years ago. Although they were simple home-cooked meals, this scene was too familiar to Christina. 5 years ago, after she and my brother graduated and rented a house off campus, these were the first dishes my brother made for her. At the time, my brother sent me pictures, saying he couldn't cook and embarrassed himself. Yes, although my brother was practically perfect, cooking was something he wasn't great at. He could only make noodles. I had even laughed hard at him then, as I was practicing my cooking skills with the hope of cooking for him next time he came home. But he never got the chance to taste my cooking again. My heart ached, so I quickly lowered my head, afraid Christina would notice. "How did you know these dishes?" Christina's voice grew cold. Like a child caught doing wrong, I blurted, "The secretary told me you liked them." I did ask the secretary about Christina's preferences. As the new favorite by Christina's side, I didn't see anything wrong with trying to please her. The secretary even complimented me on my thoughtfulness, so I wasn't worried about Christina's questions. I never expected the failed dishes my brother once made would become Christina's favorite over the years. By logic, she should be tired of all the fancy foods. Who'd guess she secretly preferred these humble dishes? Hearing my explanation, Christina seemed to dismiss her doubts, smiling. If you can't cook, don't force yourself. I just wanted to cook for you. I'll learn, I quickly replied. I know I'm useless, can't offer much else, but I want you to enjoy your meals as much as possible. I'm really bad at it, but I'll practice hard. Next time, it won't be like this. Frantically explaining, I appeared scared. Christina sighed, walked over, and tasted each dish. I knew they tasted awful, like poison, but Christina swallowed without a flinch. After eating, she remained silent for a long time. I knew she was missing him. Her longing seemed genuine. She even kept an old, plain white dress that once felt expensive now feels cheap for 5 years. She easily swallowed down a few ordinary, even bad-tasting dishes. She found person after person resembling him. But is it true love or betrayal? Who knows? Perhaps when that big shot first noticed her, Christina was innocent. Back then, someone else held the power over life and death. She couldn't do anything. But she shouldn't have watched my brother die, nor should she have strung along that big shot while dangling my brother. She really shouldn't have called her brother that day, knowing she decided to hook up with the big boss. Bringing him there led him to uncover everything, and eventually lose his life. Everything she did afterward, all those deep moments of reminiscing, were actually insults. Insults to her brother, and to the friendship they had. I thought Christina would finish these dishes and then we'd go out for some gourmet meals. Something fit for her status, her taste, the good life she sacrificed everything for. But instead, she walked over to me, putting her arm around my waist. I froze, my breath catching as I watched her. She casually untied the apron from me, wrapping it around herself and heading into the kitchen. What are you doing? My voice shook a bit, this time it was real. What is this woman up to? Christina just laughed it off. Cooking, obviously. You're so clumsy you can't even cook. Let me do it. I didn't expect Christina to actually cook. I didn't expect she would cook for me. Christina moved with such ease, and soon enough, a few delicious dishes were ready. Braised prawns, braised ribs, and stir-fried romaine lettuce. She leaned in closer, her voice low, her questioning gaze on me. Do you like these dishes? I almost said yes immediately, but I stopped myself. I can't like these dishes, because the person who loves these is John, my brother. We share similar tastes, I like them too, but wouldn't that be too much of a coincidence? I said I like everything you make. I said that, but during the meal I didn't touch the ribs. Hardly ate the lettuce, but the prawns I devoured most of them. Christina ate very little. She leaned back in her chair, watching me intently. I didn't mind her gaze, I just obediently ate. After dinner, we sat on the couch. Christina asked me seriously, "What do you like to eat?" I chuckled. Growing up, we didn't have much. Hardly ate meat or veggies, it was mostly potatoes and cabbage. It wasn't about liking, it was about getting full. Later, I got picky. Didn't like meat or veggies, just seafood when I could get it. Guess it's 'cause I never had it growing up. Christina nodded, not saying much, while I still didn't dare to relax. I underestimated Christina. To make it this far, she's not just a pretty face. She's smart, she's ruthless, and still testing me. After that, things were calm for a while. But every night, sharing the bed with Christina, I felt stiff and nauseous. The first time, I blamed inexperience. After that, I just fought against the gut-wrenching disgust. Luckily, Christina wasn't too keen on certain things. She mostly just wanted me to hold her. It was enough to have me by her side. The first month I got paid. $5,000 landed in my account. Seeing that, I couldn't help but sigh. No wonder some people want shortcuts. This really is a shortcut. Most grads would take a year to make that kind of money. And here I am, doing nothing concrete for a month. First 10 days of just playing around, the next 20 if not playing, then spending time with Christina. Life was carefree. With my paycheck, I headed to the mall. Christina wasn't there. She was busy with work during the day. She only came back to our place at night. I roamed around the mall like a country bumpkin, and finally, walked into an upscale store. I pointed at a $4,999 handbag and boldly said, "I want this." When Christina came home, I excitedly placed the bag in front of her. "Do you like it?" Christina frowned. "You spent your whole paycheck on this?" Sharp as ever, she saw it cost my entire month's salary. I just smiled shyly at her. "I'm here, you provide for everything, my food, lodging, clothes. I really don't spend much. Since things are like this between us, shouldn't I be good to you?" I don't know if my words reminded Christina of a guy who used to work 2 days on the weekends handing out flyers, earning 180 V. Then, during the week, he'd save from his bare minimum, maybe scraping together $200 or $300 to treat Christina to hot pot every Monday night after class. Week after week. Whenever he got scholarship money, he'd spend it all on a dress for Christina. Even though he was wearing $19.99 free shipping t-shirts for 3 years straight. Some people like to talk money with the poor, love with the rich. Because for the poor, money is precious. For the rich, love is precious. From where Christina stands now, a $5,000 bag is too cheap. So cheap it can't be shown off. But it was my everything, the best I could give her. Seeing Christina not touch it, my head dropped. The joy from before quickly vanished. I visibly slumped. "You don't like it? I know you use more expensive stuff. I'll save a few months and get you something better. Using your money to buy you gifts, is that just pathetic?" I looked up at her, my eyes soon red. "Are you going to get fed up with me? Eric, do you know what our relationship is?" Christina's words were icy, and as I was about to respond, she cut me off. "Eric, I'm your boss, or rather, your sponsor. I'm not in a relationship with you. I pay you a salary. Spend it on yourself. Don't waste it on me. Don't do things that don't matter. We are not in a relationship." The last part was almost shouted, but I keenly noticed her eyes were red. Her voice trembled as she turned and left, not looking back at me. I secretly chuckled to myself, thinking, she's hooked. But on the outside, I had to put on a devastated look. I carefully placed the bag on the coffee table, curled up on the couch, and hugged my knees. Maybe Christina saw me on the surveillance. Maybe she thought I was crying, feeling miserable. But little did she know, I was trying hard not to crack up. If that big shot bought her a $50,000 bag, Christina might feel undervalued. But when it's from me, a super broke assistant, it means something different. Some people are just that greedy, loving someone only when they give their all. They call it love. Christina didn't come back that night or the next, for like half a month. But my account, it got credited with 200 grand. A whole bunch of in-season men's clothing, watches, shoes, all sent to my place. Secretary Wong practically gave me a big thumbs up. His look screamed, "Good job, kid." He quietly told me, Christina's had a few assistants before, but they were just meh. Usually, they'd retire gloriously in a month or two. But not me. I've only been with Christina for a month and a half. Instead of retiring, Christina spent so much on me. Secretary Wong informed me my monthly salary is now 300 grand. Half a month passed, still no Christina, but my pay came right on the dot. I had $500,000 on hand now. Still no hesitation. I dashed off to the mall to pick out a $500,000 bag. I couldn't care less about their style. My taste isn't savvy enough to know what's chic or not. So I just went by the price. Cradling that bag, I ran straight to Christina's studio. Yes, I ran because I spent all my cash on the bag. Not even a dime left for cab fare. But isn't that perfect? How else could I show Christina I'd give her everything? I handed the bag to the studio's receptionist, asked her to pass it on, and ran out like Christina might see me any second. From the mall to Christina's studio, it's a 1-hour walk. From Christina's studio to my place, much, much farther. I jogged along, tired and sweaty for 2 hours. A Ferrari pulled up next to me. Christina stepped out, heels clicking with authority. I was drenched, t-shirt sticking to me, face burning red, looking a hot mess. Christina frowned at me. "What are you doing?" Just taking a walk. Haha. Getting fit. Staying healthy. Exercise makes me happy, you know? Christina's frown deepened, but she didn't say anything then. Get in. I obediently hopped in. Christina drove us back to what she called home. A 3-hour walk took just moments by car. Fast, right? The second we stepped in, Christina slapped me, fierce and angry. Her rage left me stunned. What's the deal? I didn't get mad. I was just bewildered. What's up? Are you mad? Did I do something wrong? Don't be mad at me. I'm sorry, all my fault. Please don't be upset. Okay? Eric, are you an idiot? Christina's voice trembled. Aren't you just here for money? I am giving you money. Just take it and leave. Why spend it all on me? I thought we were dating. I looked down, not daring to meet her eyes. You say we aren't dating, but I thought we were. Maybe you don't take me seriously, think I'm useless. But I see you as my girlfriend. I'm broke, the money comes from you. I just wanted to spend it on you. Is that wrong? You gave me a paycheck, I get to decide how to spend it where I want. Plus, I like you. That last bit came out like squeezing a tube of toothpaste. Barely audible. I kept my head down and didn't dare look at her. Then suddenly, she hugged me. Her head against my chest, her tears soaking through. You're such a fool. Yeah, a fool, right, John? She doesn't love you. She just loves anyone ready to give it all. Could be anyone. You gave her everything, even your life, but you got nothing back. She wouldn't even care long term. From that day, Christina changed. First, she started carrying the first bag I gave her, the $50,000 one, not the pricier $500,000 one. Second, she took me to her real home, the place she lived for years, full of life. Third, Christina allowed me to be her boyfriend, for real this time. I wasn't just her supported assistant anymore. I was now officially her boyfriend. Only then did I realize people aren't that hard to understand. I could feel Christina falling for me more every day. They say love is for the rich. Poor folks who can't even get by, what's the point of love? 5 years ago, Christina couldn't say she loved anyone. Maybe she truly loved her brother then, had to choose other things instead. Money, power, better everything. But now she has it all, just missing love. And here I am, right place, right time. A few months later, on my birthday, Christina had a huge cake ordered for the celebration. Right after I blew out the candles, Christina pulled out a ring box, looked at me with earnest eyes, and asked, Eric, will you marry me? Her gaze was full of love, completely unguarded. But I just laughed. Not my usual innocent act or playing dumb. This time, my laughter was pure mockery. I looked at her and said, Christina, you've fallen in love with me. There was something odd in my voice when I said it, but Christina was so wrapped up in her feelings she didn't notice. She just nodded and said, Eric, I love you. You love me? What about John? I laughed at her, a cruel, mocking laugh. Didn't you say you'd love John forever? That he was the only one? How long has it been since he died? And you're already in love with someone else. How many people have you said this I love you to? John must be turning in his grave, knowing you're such a loose woman, willing to say I love you to anyone. She looked at me, terrified. Who are you? How do you know about John? Christina, always the actress, usually hides behind that indifferent facade. But now she looked genuinely scared. It was almost hilarious. Things had gone too far, so I decided to tell her who I really was. I'm John's brother. You're here for revenge. You were playing a role from the start, right? You never cared about me, did you? Christina was starting to understand, and I didn't deny it. That's right. From the beginning, everything was an act. Didn't you find it a bit too lucky? After gaining wealth and power, suddenly someone who looks just like John shows up and loves you just as John did? Willing to give you everything, showing you their heart, hoping you'd look its way. Isn't it all too bizarre? You had one John love you. How could you expect another to appear? Impossible. You're talking nonsense. Christina was breaking down, and I found it all too amusing. She looked so beautiful even in despair. Christina, you're a filthy woman, I said. I never loved you. Everything was to make you pay for what you did. Sometimes unless someone feels the pain themselves, they won't realize what went wrong. You have to make them go through it to understand. You dare to deceive me? I'll kill you. Christina snapped back quickly, lunging at me with unmasked intent to kill. She wanted to kill me, no doubt about it. Unlike 5 years ago, she's not the same woman who collapsed and cried at the sight of death. Now she holds the power to decide life and death, yelling and threatening just like those she used to despise. But did she think I'd spent nearly a year by her side doing nothing? How foolish. I grabbed her hand and pinned her to the table. As police sirens blared and officers burst in, I leaned in close. Didn't expect this, did you? While you thought we were in love, while you let your guard down, I was gathering evidence of your filthy deeds. As you cut cake for me, celebrated my birthday, and planned to propose, I called the cops. The light in Christina's eyes faded. She wanted a family with me, thinking everything from John's life, death, love, and hate was over and forgotten. She felt ready for a new life, even to love another man, maybe start a family. But I chose this most brutal, inappropriate moment to reveal it was all a sham. That nothing is over until you pay your dues. I smiled cruelly. It's not even my birthday. The identity I used to get close to you was fake. And the man who really killed my brother, he'll meet you again in prison. This wasn't just something I did alone. Many people like me who've suffered at the hands of scum like you were part of this. Took nearly 6 years, but I finally did it. I can finally visit John's grave and tell him to rest in peace. I can finally live in the light, free from the shadows, no fake identities needed. Now that my revenge is fulfilled, life can finally be lived openly and smoothly. Even as she's dragged away, Christina kept shouting, "Eric, did you really never love me? How could I?" I yelled back. It was always about revenge. I always knew I was acting. There's only one who truly loved you, and his name was John. He's dead, and anyone else who comes into your life won't love you for real. Christina seemed utterly crushed. She screamed, "I truly loved John back then, and I truly love you now. But what's done is done. Mistakes can't be undone."